Are you curious what ISO levels work well for YouTube? So am I. Let's figure it out together. First, a quick background on ISO levels and why they matter. ISO is a digital camera's sensitivity to light. And so when you're trying to tweak ISO levels, you're actually trying to get the right exposure for your shot. Getting the right exposure is important because if you have too much or too little, your image will either look blown out or it'll be too dark. Let me show you examples of what I'm talking about. Here's a great example of something that is overexposed, and you can tell it's really bright, that the whites kind of wash out, you can't really see my shirt, and it just doesn't look good. It's too bright. This is overexposed. Here's an example of something that's underexposed. It's too dark, and so the camera is not getting enough light. One thing you can do is boost the ISO. So the goal when setting up an image is to try and get the exposure at the right level where it's just enough light, and then you also don't have a noisy image. And so tweaking the ISO, the higher it gets, the noisier the image can get, or the lower it is, the better and cleaner your image will be. ISO 100, for all intents and purposes, is the best setting you can have. But you're not always going to have that. You're not always going to have a great low light condition. Right now, I'm shooting at ISO 100 with a 60th shutter speed and f2 aperture. This I would call optimal lighting conditions. But let's say you're out somewhere in the streets at night or it's darker, or if I didn't have this light right now, it doesn't always work that way. What we're going to do is we're going to do some testing to get a better idea of how tweaking the ISO works. There is a triangle that you can use, triangle, whenever you're trying to set up your shot. There's three parts to that triangle. There's shutter speed, there is aperture, and there's ISO. And these are important because tweaking each one might need you to adjust the other. You just kind of have to agree on what you're going to focus on. So that's a whole nother video, but just a quick rundown. If you have a fast moving target, usually you want a higher shutter speed, which will let less light into the camera because it's a quick picture like that. The f2 aperture that I have set right now, maybe you want to be able to focus and see less of a blurry background in a different video. But for the most part, what you're going to be doing is you're going to set your aperture, you're going to set your shutter speed, and you're going to lock those in. And then you're going to be like, okay, well, it's too dark. And then you tweak your ISO up. And then you're like, okay, I went too far. It's noisy. This sucks. And so the goal here is to find that nice sweet spot. And I'm going to demo with my camera and show you these sweet spots. And then you can kind of judge for yourself. Let me know what you think about the different levels I picked. And I'll kind of put my commentary and feedback and, be like a discourse. So to do the tests, we're going to be using the Canon M50, which is a crop sensor camera. And I will also be using two lenses. So I'm going to set the aperture to f3.5, and then I'm going to set the shutter speed to 1/30th on both lenses. First lens will be the Canon EF-M 22mm. It's a native lens for the Canon M50. The other one I'll be using is my old Rebel T3i kit lens, and it's a 18 to 55mm lens. It goes as low as f3.5, hence I wanted to compare at that level. And it will be attached with a fotodiox Pro adapter that takes the Canon EF-M to the EF mount. Let's get to testing. So this is ISO 100, 125, 160, 200, 250, 320, 400, 500, 640, 800, 1000, 1250, 1600, 2000, 2500, 3200. Here at ISO 100, 125, 160, 200, 250, 320, 400, 500, 640, 800, 1000, 1250, 1600, 2000, 2500, 3200. Alright, now let's look at what we did. So, to review, shoot at 100 ISO if you can. That's your absolute best setting, or whatever the lowest your camera would go. Mine's 100. But if you can't, then when I was looking at the footage, I did notice that lens does make a difference. So lens quality will make a difference here. And so I did notice for the Canon EF-M 22mm, 800 felt acceptable. There was some noise, but I actually didn't mind it, and that's 1080p Full HD. The other lens, which was the 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens, that was a bit noisier at every ISO level. Lenses actually do matter. A good quality lens will probably outperform a crappier lens. I would say that my 22 millimeter is a better prime lens than the zoom lens. So as I get different lenses, I'll probably want to do the same test to figure out what is better. And so I recommend you do the same. Anytime you get a lens, you probably want to say, okay, what settings does this lens perform well at? And what is the maximum that I want to push it to get the image that I want to see? That's, again, 1080p full screen. Now, here's where I think you can fudge things a bit, and this is something I want to actually experiment with, and I don't know if there's YouTube analytics telling me what my audience is viewing on. If I had an audience, if you had an audience, you know, this is video 2, there's no audience right now. But when you're looking at something on your phone, you know, it's a much smaller screen, and 800 looks great. 1600 also looked pretty good. It's a smaller screen compared to your monitor, so you will notice less unless you really get your eyes up all in that screen. Something to think about. If your audience is mostly mobile, then maybe this is fine. And maybe you don't need to have a very crisp 800 ISO image or even a 100 ISO image. I'm not saying ever to sacrifice quality, but there are times when you can fudge things a little bit because it's tailored to an audience that's mobile, maybe on the trains, and that's your audience. So they don't demand very precise video studio quality at all times. They're, you know, you're making a certain type of content that is acceptable, travel or something like that. Just something to keep in mind when you're filming and you're doing your tests out there. You take a look at the video yourself, look at it on your phone, pull it up full screen on your computer. Let me know. I think 800 was probably the minimum I'll ever go. And that's one thing though, I picked a high contrast background in the back here. And so you'll notice the noise a lot more in that, but in the whites here, like, I think it actually looks better and you don't notice it as much. So if you're shooting a different scene, you actually could probably go lower depending on what contrast is in your scene, and maybe you could even do some post-production noise cleanup. I didn't do any of that here. I just wanted to shoot as it was and do some tests that way. So, hey, that's my test. Let me know. Leave some feedback if you enjoyed this video, if this helped you, if it was totally worthless, if I did it wrong. Whatever you want to say. I mean, I'm just learning here, and we're all here to learn. So, thanks for watching.